Errol Spence's trainer, Derek James, has revealed that Spence has only just started sparring again. Well, it will be yesterday, Monday. Now, this to me is not surprising, given the severity of the car crash that Errol Spence was involved in, but it is still alarming. If you're an Errol Spence fan, and he's going into this Danny Garcia fight, which isn't a million years away, okay, it's happening relatively soon, you have to imagine that Danny Garcia has been sparring. Despite all the restrictions and what have you, these top-level professionals, because they have the money and they have the ability, they find ways and means to actually stay in the gym and stay sparring with each other. You have to imagine that Danny Garcia has been sparring lots of times over the past few months. Maybe not every day. He's not been specifically in a training camp, but he is a top-level athlete. You've never seen Danny Garcia out of shape. He is a gym rat. You have to imagine he's been in there moving around with people and sparring over the past few months, whereas Errol Spence hasn't. And that's really the acid test for his team to find out whether Errol is still the same guy. Again, like I said in a previous video, obviously they're going to say all the right things. Obviously they're going to say, oh, Errol's as good as new and there's no issue in terms of any, residual long-lasting effects from what happened in the car crash. They're obviously going to say that. But is it actually true? That's what we're going to find out when he fights Danny Garcia. And that's what him and his team are going to find out. Well, would have found out to some degree yesterday and as camp progresses. Because look, when you haven't sparred for a long time, and this goes for most people, amateur, pro, whatever it is, when you haven't sparred for a long time, for the best part of a year or 6 months, whatever, you're usually rusty. Your timing isn't quite there, especially if you're getting in with somebody who has been sparring regularly. Usually quite rusty. You're getting hit with shots you wouldn't normally get hit with. You can't quite, pull the trigger on certain openings, and your counters are not as sharp as they normally would be. So it takes a while to shake the rust off and get that sharpness back, even if you're in good athletic shape. So maybe yesterday, let's just, hypothesize that yesterday Errol Spence looked a bit rusty, was getting hit with shots. And they say, oh, it's just down to the fact he's been out the ring and hasn't sparred for a while. As camp progresses, I'm sure they're being very optimistic and hoping that Errol Spence is going to get sharper and he's going to look better and all this kind of stuff. But what if he doesn't? What if they start looking at Errol and thinking, hang on, this guy is not what he used to be prior to the crash? Does Derek James say anything to his fighter? Does he make provisions? Does he say, okay, we need to change the way he's training. We need to switch up the game plan in order to accommodate what Errol can no longer do as well as he could? It's like when fighters get older. Bernard Hopkins, he changed his style and he changed his strategy in a lot of fights to accommodate the fact that he couldn't do certain things from an athletic point of view that he could do when he was younger. So he had to switch it up and compensate for that. Will Derek James, if Errol Spence is not performing to the level that he used to be able to perform pre-crash, will he say, you know what? Okay, we're going to have to do something a bit different here with Errol. He can't do things quite the way he could before. Now look, I'm not wishing this on Errol Spence. I hope that more miracles occur, because it was miraculous that he even survived that car crash in the first place. We all saw the video, right, with the Ferrari, or what is it, Lamborghini? I can't remember which kind of sports car he has, but the car was flipping like a pancake down the road. It was crazy. And that was a convertible, and Errol Spence was ejected from the car, and you're thinking there's no way that in a convertible somebody could have survived that crash unscathed. I mean, it's miraculous that he's even alive. So to come out of such a serious crash where he got ejected from the car, he had his teeth knocked out, he had facial damage. Apparently he suffered some other damage, but is, kind of been kept a little hush-hush. The proof is in the pudding. We need to see what he's actually like in the ring. And I'll be very interested. See, everybody knows that Hatman loves sparring rumors. I would love to hear from the gyms rumors coming out of the gyms in America, wherever Errol Spence is sparring, the people who are in and around the Errol Spence training camp, maybe some sparring partners or observers. I'd love to hear the rumors about how Errol was looking in sparring. Maybe he really is the miracle man, because it was a miracle that he survived that crash, a miracle that he was able to continue his boxing career. Maybe it will be a third miracle whereby he's just as good as he was pre-crash, or maybe even better. Because he certainly talked about how he needs to sort his life out post-crash because he nearly lost it. Now he understands that he needs to take things more seriously. He needs to stay in shape in between fights. And see, the disappointing thing is that Errol Spence was really admonishing. He was really having a go at Kell Brook for not living the life 365. In the lead up to their fight, he was kind of poking fun at Kell Brook for blowing up in between fights. And then we find Errol Spence doing the exact same thing a couple years later. Like he didn't learn from his opponent's mistake. And now that he nearly lost his life in this car crash, he says he has learned his mistake. He's seen the light, but is it too late? Is his body never going to be the same as it was pre-crash? These are the questions. It's going to be very interesting to see. As I say, I'm not wishing any bad on the guy. Truth be told, and those of you who have been subscribed to me for a long time, I've always been very high on Errol Spence. Even before he became world champion, I liked his attitude. I liked the way he went about his business in the ring and outside of the ring. He just seemed to be all business and he wasn't about any BS. But once he became champion, he kind of started, going off the rails, and I was disappointed with the way Errol Spence was going. So I've always been high on Errol Spence from very early on in his career, always rated him. Hopefully, a third miracle can occur, and he will be the Errol Spence that we knew before the crash, maybe even better. Let's see. Let me know what you guys think in the comments about this particular subject.